Back to Ukraine now, and Russia is working to cut Ukrainian supply lines. Moscow targeted at least 5 train stations yesterday. Meanwhile, there's a fierce battle underway in the eastern part of the country, and Russia's foreign minister is issuing new threats about the risk of nuclear conflict. Charlie D'Agata standing by in Dnipro, Ukraine with more. Charlie, so good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, well, the Russian military says it struck 90 targets overnight and killed 500 Ukrainian soldiers, destroyed dozens of military vehicles. Those numbers can't be verified, but what's clear is that fighting has intensified all along the front line.
There's been no rest for the firefighters of Kharkiv. Ukraine's second largest city has been among the hardest hit in the past 24 hours of Russian bombardment. A shell-shocked and bewildered 94-year-old woman asks whether the war is over. It's the latest onslaught from a Russian advance stretching along a 300-mile front line in the east. Some of those who managed to escape the fighting head here to a shopping center in Zaporizhzhia.
It's the reality of a country at war that you can buy fabric softener in one aisle, have a refugee tent in the parking lot, and a cafe that's been turned into a first aid center.
Fedor Zubkov says he lost his wife in Russian shelling and is now struggling to cope mentally. We started dating when we were 15 years old, he said. She was my first love. At a nearby military hospital, we find Nazik Nativ after stepping forward to fight when the war broke out. The 27-year-old radio host from Lviv found himself right in the middle of the most brutal frontline fighting in the Donbass region. An artillery round on Saturday tore through both legs and his arm.
Did you think maybe you weren't going to survive?
I thought I lost my leg and wouldn't be able to play soccer, he said. First thing I asked was whether I could play soccer and fight again.
You want to fight again?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Of course, because it's my land. It's my country. It's my motherland.
Now, we asked whether he told his mother how badly wounded he was. He said not yet. He didn't want to worry her, and she's the type of person who would travel more than 600 miles from Lviv to the front line to come see him. Anne-Marie?
Well, I can totally understand that as a mother. Let me ask you just a couple more questions. You spoke to several people sort of in that shopping mall area. What else did they have to tell you?
Yeah, you know, that shopping mall was weird. It was surreal, and you kind of get used to that. Here in Dnipro, you know, they've got all kinds of defenses that are set up, and that's certainly the case in Zaporizhzhia. But there is where they're collecting most of the people who are coming not only from places like Mariupol and parts of the south, but also eastern Ukraine. And that man that we were speaking to who lost his wife, he's 36 years old, and you could see the kind of condition that he was in. He says he's dropped all kinds of weight. He said he was tortured by some of the Russian-backed separatists there. I asked him if he was getting any psychological help for what he was going through. He said no. Having said that, there are tons of volunteers who are at that center who said they felt like they needed to do something, certainly because of what was happening in Mariupol. The people that have been coming out of Mariupol specifically because it's been battered for more than 2 months, they just want some bread. They just want something to drink, and they want some place to stay. In terms of that, there are a lot of people, a lot of families who are just opening their homes. We spoke to a woman with 3 young children. I said, well, where are you going to go now? They said, actually, we've been invited to a home here. So Zaporizhzhia, it's one of the biggest cities in the southeast that isn't under Russian control, and Ukrainian families are just opening up their homes, the hotels, anywhere they can in order to help people out. It's interesting to note here that the people that are wounded who are coming from the front, they're getting a sort of triage in Zaporizhzhia, and then they're moved to other hospitals. And the reason for that is they want to keep the hospitals open for what they're expecting will be an influx of the wounded from the fighting that's currently underway.
Wow. So while that is happening on the ground in Ukraine, we have all these high-level meetings that are happening elsewhere. Now, Vladimir Putin has not met with President Zelensky yet. He hasn't met with anyone from Ukraine yet, but he is meeting with the UN Security Secretary General, today. I'm wondering how, people in Ukraine feel about that meeting.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of anger, to say the least, from the Ukrainian government and from President Zelensky himself, saying, why are you going to Russia first? Why are you going to Moscow before you come here? The Secretary General is due to come here on Thursday and will meet with President Zelensky and top leaders of the Ukrainian government. President Zelensky says you have this the other way around. You should come here. You should look at the destruction that Russia is responsible for. Look at the deaths. Look at the thousands of wounded. Then go to Moscow, then speak to President Putin and say, what are you doing about this, and make it stop. So President Zelensky, of course, he's happy that progress is going ahead. He has said multiple times he's willing to meet with President Putin directly. He's all for any kind of diplomatic channels to make the war stop here. But when he found out that the Secretary General was going to see President Putin first, the person who is personally responsible for this conflict as far as Ukrainians are concerned, that's the wrong way around. Should come here first. That would send the message to President Putin and to the rest of the world who's in the wrong here.
Charlie, thank you very much.